So in this video, I'm talking about slicers and also how to use slicers to make like a dynamic dashboard. Okay, so what you see right now is just what will typically pass for HR data. It is bogus. It is nobody's data. It doesn't belong to any company and any organization. And you can see the fields. You have last name. Well, first of all, you have employee ID, employee last name, job code, hire date, birth date, sex, location, job status, pay type, years of service, service groupings, and then also annual um, salary. Okay, so to insert slicers, I mean, pretty much with anything you want to insert in Excel, you'll see it in this tab, the insert tab. Okay, so what are the things you can insert potentially? Tables, illustrations, add-ins, charts, doors, spark lines, filters, links, and comments, and then a few more things. So here I'm interested particularly in slicers and timelines in Excel. So you can see I have the table open. Clicked. I have the tab insert tab also open right now. So to insert a slicer, but before I do talk about inserting a slicer. What is a slicer? A slicer is essentially a filter that you can add to your data. So a slicer will have the same effect as using a filter. If I come here and I go to data and I use a filter and I click on filter here, you can see that the filter option has disappeared from the headers. If I click on it again, so with that, having clicked on it, I can come here and make a selection from my this particular field, this particular column. So that is kind of affect the end result of adding a slide of what adding a slicer to the data will do for you. So here I can select the year and that particular date field. So let's go back to slicer. So to insert a slicer, you come to insert, you come here, under the filters section, you click on slicer. When you click on slicer, this display shows up and it shows all the fields in your data. So these are all the fields in my data: employee ID, last name, job code, hire date, birth date, the sex, the location, job status, and then it goes on and on. So if I want to show, I want to be able to filter on my on my field. I'm going to check this one particularly, the gender field, the location field, and let's say I also check on the job status and the pay type. When I say okay, it's going to insert for me button a button like display for each field that I chose. So like if I bring this out, this is the sex field, and you see it's a listing of every entry in that particular field. So you have F for for female, M for male. The location one, the location slicer, I have four locations. It kind of summarizes everything that is in my data. So I have four different locations: Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. I have the job status slicer also, which has contract employees, full-time employees, part-time employees. The pay type slicer also has um, hourly, uh, employees paid hourly, employees paid by salary. Now, note that when you click on each slicer, you can reduce, you can adjust the size of each slicer like this, by clicking on the handles when they show up and manipulating them uh, whichever way you want. Okay, so this is the effect. I'll tell you what the effect of a slicer is, what it does really. So if I click on F, filters the data based on what I chose, and now it's showing only female employees. If I come here and click on M, it shows us only the male employees. And I can unfilter, I can clear the filter here. You can see the X, the red X there. I can remove it. If I click on Vancouver employees only, this is all there are. I have 7 employees in Vancouver. So you can see it's a quick and nifty way filter through your data. If I click on Montreal, these are only the Montreal employees. And I can click on Montreal. I can do a multiple selection, Montreal. And within that location field, I can hold down the control key and click on Vancouver. When I do that, it shows me only Montreal and Vancouver. You can see only Montreal is selected and Vancouver also. So if I come here, I can also click on another field slicer. If I do this to show me only female employees in Montreal and in Vancouver, you can see that born through the data. See, all the employees are female, and the locations are just Vancouver, Montreal, and Montreal. So it's possible to use your filters in a multiple way like that. So a few editing options that you can have with your slicers. So if you come here, if this a slicer is selected, like this one is selected, you can always come here to the slicer option here. So if you click on slicer, you have a bunch of options, a bunch of ways in which you can manipulate your slicer. So if, first of all, you look at the styles, different colors. So I can make it red, I can make it green, I can make it teal. I guess that's teal. You can make it this one is the default one, I believe. Is it this one or this one? Uh, you make it dark blue, and you can also and customize your own slicer. Make a different style for yourself, or make your own style. That's possible also. Not only that, I can come here and look at slicer settings. So I can choose to display the header or not. I can choose to ascend A to Z or Z to A. I can also choose to hide items with no data, or visually indicate items with no data, or show items with no data last. So that's possible. It's a nifty way. Slices are a nifty way, really. I can also do some editing over here. Here I can choose, like, let me select, look at the location slicer, for example. If I come here and I increase the number of columns here, right now the number of columns is just one column, right? For location, I can come here, increase the number. And when I do that, you can see that it has 3 columns right now. All 3 columns are um, listed. I can make it 4 columns to make it even. So how many how many columns I use is totally up to me. In that case, I'll have to make it look neat. So there's a bit of aesthetic value to the way you arrange your stuff here, the way you arrange your slicers and your field. So depending on what you're trying to report, depending on how you're trying to uh, show your data, you can insert here an extra field. I could do this easily. For example, if I need to have my users use the data and filter upon it, I could do something like this. So, um, so it will look like I have buttons on the website or something like that. I can make it look like that, uh, organize it out like that, make it neat and aesthetically pleasing to the eyes. So that's important. So I can come here, put this in here maybe, so that they can filter on it. So at this point, when a filter is clicked, like I said before, you come to the slicer option over here. You can change the number of columns over here. You can change the height of the buttons over here. You can change the size of the buttons. So height and width of the buttons, and then the size of your slicer itself. This portion is for the buttons. This portion is for the slicer itself. So you can increase the height, increase the width for any of them. So if I bring my this slicer over here, I can make it look like this also, where the user can filter on the data based on the selections over here. So it could look something like this. Let me make this part a bit bigger, just for aesthetic value. So if I right now, if I click on Montreal, it shows the Montreal data. On the left, click on Toronto, shows it on the left. Vancouver shows it on the left. Same thing with Winnipeg, shows it on the right. I mean, okay. So so slices work like that. Basically, very easy to insert, very easy to use, and it doesn't take time to do. And it can add a good feel, a good bit of aesthetic value to the data. So I'm going to talk about using slicers with charts to make something that will look like a dynamic um, dashboard in Excel in the next video.